Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka Knockdown. Jay, how's it going, my guy?
TV free agency is in full swing, and we are already seeing the league shaking up. And I don't know about you, but I'm already excited for next season, and I don't even think every single domino is falling yet.
I mean, there's a lot of signings that have been made, and Jay, we talked about this pre-pod. There's still a lot of trades that could be in the works. The DeMar DeRozan situation, Bruce Brown in Toronto, we're still waiting to see where he's going to end up because, let's be honest, he's going to get traded this offseason. And a bunch of other people, because a lot of teams have struck out on some free agents and they're going to want to improve their team at some point. So you know the trades are coming, and we're going to probably go into that later on in the offseason. But in today's episode, it's all free agency. We're going to try and get through a lot of the deals, especially the main ones we're going to be talking about in depth, talking about some of the extensions. And, of course, we're going to end off the episode with the draft and quiz, as you go find on every single episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. But before we get into this episode, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at knockdownj/routine jumper. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, remember to follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. You'll find the clips, you'll find some offseason content, potentially some WNBA content going forward, Olympics content later on this month. So you're going to find so much stuff on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast on TikTok and Instagram. In terms of the YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening to us on the podcast network, Spotify, Apple, remember to subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of you guys' support. Jay, there's a lot of free agency we have to get to. You ready to get into this?
Dude, I mean, we can go anywhere with this in terms of where we can start.
We can do that 100%. And Jay, we might just do this a little bit of a draft style. So we're going to go through the kind of like our favorite deals that we want to discuss here, and we're going to go back and forth to which one you want to talk about. So, Jay, I'm going to throw the floor over to you. Which deal like really interested you, and what do you want to talk about here first?
I mean, obviously one of the biggest deals so far has to be Klay Thompson and the signing trade to the Dallas Mavericks. We're talking about an end of an era for Golden State, and the Western Conference champions from just this past season. They got better this summer, and he's not the only signing this summer that they made, but he's easily the most notable, and he's definitely a guy that's going to contribute day one. No matter how you feel about how the end of Klay Thompson's run with the Warriors went, the way he fits on this Dallas Mavericks team, it definitely makes him a really dangerous team next year, and that's going on top of what we just saw from them.
Yeah, no, they decided to like go big here for Klay Thompson, and to be honest, they kind of got him on a little discount. If you look around the league and like the deals that he was potentially getting, it was like a 4-year deal. It was like a 3-year, I think, like I told you, it was like a 3-year, $60 million deal from the Warriors. It was a 4-year, $80 million deal from the Lakers. Lakers, did you really want to pay this man for 4 years? But apparently the Lakers were about to do that, but they ended up getting from a little bit of a discount, 3 years, $15 million. And like Jay mentioned, it is an upgrade, especially on the offensive end. One of the biggest things that we noticed with the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals is that the Boston Celtics were allowing a lot of three-pointers, but not from the places where the Dallas Mavericks were comfortable, and that was shooting from the corners. They forced a lot of above-the-break threes, a lot of wing threes, and their guys are not used to it. Plug in one of the greatest shooters in NBA history, someone who can score on all levels of the floor, anywhere from the three-point line, that becomes a threat. And the Mavericks have been needing that for a while. I think that was a good signing for the Mavericks, but I also think it just, it's a sad ending for the Golden State Warriors. You kind of felt like Draymond, Klay, and Steph were going to be kind of forever Golden State lifers, but at the end of the day, things had to move on, and Klay Thompson ended up on the Dallas Mavericks. But I think it's a good deal for Dallas, and Golden State are making moves to try and to make up for the Klay Thompson deal, and let's see how they're going to do next season.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's just important for them is this is a team that needed to take a step forward. They clearly saw that with certain kind of talent in their room, they are able to be a championship caliber squad. And I think they now have a good index of what building around Luka Doncic can amount to when it's fully optimized, right? Kyrie Irving as a secondary ball handler and secondary shot creator, being able to get three-point shooting from what once was, Derrick Jones Jr., who ended up going to the Clippers, I believe. And also having like a PJ Washington on the roster to stretch the floor, the effectiveness of a Derek Lively II, along with a Daniel Gafford. These are all things that they're able to build up on, and then you pair that with the fact that they're able to bring in a Najee Marshall, who's like a tenacious defender defensively on the wing, guards 1 through 3 really well. While then you bring in a guy like, Klay Thompson, who can guard the 3s and 4s nowadays and has to be much more respected from beyond the arc than a Derrick Jones Jr. was. It just opens up things significantly for them. And I think that, like, no disrespect to Stephen Curry, but getting a pass from Luka Doncic is just different in terms of the way he opens up 3-point shooting opportunities for other players around him. And no player around him in past seasons has been so high volume or efficient of a 3-point shooter as Klay Thompson is, which makes it almost like a weird match made in heaven type of thing.
Yeah, 100%. But Jay, I'm going to throw this over question to you. Like, do you think Klay's going to start? Because, like, I mean, on paper it looks like he starts, but at the same time, would you rather have someone like a Quentin Grimes in the starting lineup, a Najee Marshall in the starting lineup, just for defensive purposes? Because I'm looking at that 3-man like perimeter group. Klay Thompson took a step back defensively over the last couple of years. Kyrie and Luka, obviously, that's not the strongest suit, and you're gonna put a lot of pressure on Derek Lively if like you have all 3 of them starting at the game. Like, do you think Klay Thompson is like a full-time starter? Maybe it's like a depends on the game sort of scenario. What do you think?
So if I'm just being honest with you, I think semantics put it to the point that, like, I don't think Klay Thompson signs with Dallas if he's not starting. Like, I feel like that is a part of the conversation.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because you have to factor in that part of what Golden State came to him about was that Podziemski would be starting, and they were trying to convince him of potentially taking a long-term come off the bench role, which of course was something that he didn't seem too fond of during the regular season this past season. And now you have yet another 3 years potentially of a Golden State Warriors squad that, like, he helped build the dynastic run that they have been on. Obviously it's had its bumps and grinds throughout that time frame, but like, he is one of the pillars of this. And Draymond Green, in a weird way, has been a guy who has created a lot of roadblocks for this Golden State Warriors team down the line. Yet it seems like Klay Thompson seems to be the guy that has to fall on the sword in the Golden State Warriors front office eyes. So I think when you look at what Dallas had to have promised him, I do believe that, like, starting is a part of where the agreement came from. You have to remember where his final teams were. It was Orlando, it was Dallas, and it was also the Lakers. Obviously, I think that if it's between Dallas and the Lakers, something like starting wouldn't be a big enough moot point, right? Because I think we know for sure Klay would start for the Lakers.
Yes.
So that had to be a part of it automatically for Dallas. I think otherwise, I think they would have lost him.
Yeah, no, you might be right. I just think that, like, with the way that he's been like, kind of like regressing on the defensive end, that it puts kind of too much pressure on Derek Lively at the rim. But at the same time, maybe like him like having this reduced, well, maybe like a full off season of like getting back into it can maybe like improve his defense. But we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it's a good deal for Dallas. They brought him in. They brought in Quinn Grimes in the trade too, so I think that's going to be helpful for the 3-point shooting as well. And of course, they brought in Najee Marshall. They lost a couple of guys in the process, but I think someone who was like kind of a fallen shoulder due to all this was Josh Green, who now ends up in NBA purgatory and the Charlotte Hornets. But getting Klay Thompson, I think, was a good deal here. So Klay to the Mavericks, I think, was a good spot. Jay, I'm going to go with my next one. And, of course, we have to talk about this. Paul George going to the Philadelphia 76ers. We said that this was going to be make or break for the 76ers if they don't get this deal done. But he does sign. He gets the 4th year, 4 years, $212 million. It's a move that they needed to make. I don't mind, like, him getting, like, a max sort of deal. I'm kind of worried when it comes to the 4th year of his deal, and he's like a 38, 39-year-old getting paid $50 million a year, but that's a future problem. Paul George is on this team now. He's probably going to be like their 3rd scoring option on this team, and the 76ers are really looking good on paper if they could stay healthy. Paul George, Embiid, and Maxey seems like a great fit, but of course, injuries are always an issue. Jay, your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, we talked about it off pod about the weird thing for the LA Clippers where it just doesn't seem like we really have a grasp of what their direction is. Like, I told you when we were talking off pod about how that statement they made before Paul George kind of officially went, to take his visit and then, later on signed with the Philadelphia 76ers, that it looked a little it looked a little shifty. Like it looked like one of those things where it looked like they were beating around the bush. And you read it, and one of their main highlight points as to where they couldn't meet in the middle with Paul George was the idea of the second apron being implemented. And what I think that's good PR for a casual Clipper fan, because a casual Clipper fan that does not understand the second apron and the impact of its influence on basketball teams moving forward, because this will be the first year that the second apron has any real impact in terms of hard capping teams, putting people in real tough spots in terms of the luxury tax, all those type of things. This is a very new implemented aspect of the CBA that's going to be making its first real appearance this year. So a casual Clipper fan will see that and say, well, dang, this new CBA thing is making it where our team can't afford to bring back Paul George. And that's a very semantics way of trying to get the people on your side without telling the truth. Because the truth of the matter is, the Clippers are going to be impacted by the second apron regardless of if Paul George had the fourth year or not, which seemed to be the biggest disagreement between the two, was coming to the agreement of adding that fourth year onto that maximum contract. So how does this benefit Philly? First of all, Philly has a good handful of the Clippers picks. So talk about being a real winner in this, because they have a handful of the Clippers picks from the James Harden transaction. But on top of that, something that's really interesting to factor in when you talk about Paul George's impact on this team is he doesn't have to be the first option. He doesn't even have to be the second option offensively, which makes this huge. Something else I think is also kind of cool about this squad is we might get shooting guard Paul George back.
Yeah. Yeah,
which
I can see. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a really good element to maybe lean back on. In his older age, defensively, I think he could still guard twos and threes relatively well. I think there's a really interesting lineup that includes Tyrese Maxey at the 1, Paul George at the 2. They brought back Kelly Oubre, who at one point, if you guys remember, before he got hit by a freaking car, the dude was averaging almost 20 points a game.
Right.
Insert 4-man here because they still kind of have a weird thing going with that power forward spot. And then obviously Joel Embiid at the center spot. A really good foundation in terms of what they have on the wings. You have Jared McCain off the bench, or you could potentially use Jared McCain as part of a trade to facilitate getting another power forward type. Yeah. They've got some interesting pieces. And TV, this is something I want to get your thoughts on, but this is something that I don't even think, even with the podcast I've listened to, have really delved into this enough. Yes, that fourth year was a big dissipator between the two parties, being Paul George and the Clippers, right? But I also think there's something to be said about Paul George giving a damn about winning versus preference of comfort.
Yeah.
Preference of comfort would be you are an LA kid with a studio in LA as part of Paul George's podcast persona thing he has going on.
Yeah.
And you have all of this background that the Clippers were leaning on, right? You're the Palmdale kid. Are you really going to leave the Clippers? You know what I mean? That was the pitch. They were playing chicken with him to say, you're a Palmdale kid. Are you really going to leave us? And the reality of it was that's the only big boon that the Clippers had. The Clippers have seen this movie for 5 years. They haven't won a playoff series since 2021, right? It's either 2021 or 2022. I believe it's 2021. This team in 5 years only won 3 playoff series. In 5 years, they won 3 playoff series. TV, you need 3 playoff series to get to the title. To get to the title game, you need to win 3 playoff series. They won 3 playoff series over 5 years. Right?
Right.
So this team has been an underachiever for the better part of half a decade. And they're a team that when you look at their financial situation and you look at the aging curve of a Kawhi Leonard, of a James Harden, This team
Right.
only is heading in the wrong direction unless all of a sudden Kawhi Leonard gets a burst of health we haven't seen in years,
Right.
right? Unless James Harden reverts back into the guy that we saw a few seasons ago, back maybe with the early stages of maybe even the Brooklyn Nets. There's still a lot that this team needs to culminate to even feel like a dangerous squad in the West because they haven't shown us anything that's given us any real reason to believe in them. So Paul George looks at the landscape of the Clippers, looks at the direction that the Philadelphia 76ers are heading in, and says, I can go there without them having to give anything up. They have the guy who's coming off of an MVP 2 seasons ago, Tyrese Maxey, who just grew up into an all-star practically overnight, and a guy in Daryl Morey, who, if you need to go get a superstar talent, or if you need to build around a guy like a Joel Embiid, Daryl Morey is going to be aggressive about getting the right pieces to build that squad. And he went to Philly, despite the fact that if you dig into his heart, you put a lie detector test on Paul George and you say, where do you want to stay based off your heart's content? It would have been re-signing with the Clippers. But looking at the future of that team and the future that he wants as a guy who I assume still has high aspirations to win a championship, went to the better situation. I think that needs to be talked about a little bit more too.
Well, I mean, the Clippers had enough chances to like go, and I think like you saw the writing on the wall as to like how far this team can go. The 76ers are again maybe like finals ready. Does this put them into the top three in terms of the league, in terms of them being title contenders? That has yet to be seen. But I do think that the part of the Paul George deal of him either being with the Clippers or now moving on to the Clippers to the 76ers is that he wants to be competing. At the end of the day, he wants to be competing, and I think he's been there long enough that he's seen that the Clippers can only go so far, whether that's due to injuries, whether that's just due to like their line of construction, and Philly kind of just gives him a better shot at reaching the pinnacle. It's the same thing though with the Clippers, where both teams have their own injury issues aside, but at the same time, the 76ers are just more built to go further into the playoffs, and I think that now adding that third guy in Paul George, basically the next replacement for the Ben Simmons, for the James Harden. Now you have Paul George as your third guy. It's gonna be like Philly gives them the best chance to move forward. Now, whether all of these can stay healthy, it's like both situations have that same concern. But I do think that the 76ers are more built long term to deal with it, per se, more than the Clippers at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that the Clippers are in a tough position and they're going to have to do some real cap finagling. Obviously, next year they can create some real optionality for themselves
Mm-hmm.
with the way the money could line up for them next season. So it's not the end of the Clippers per se, but this iteration of the Clippers, I mean, this is good. I mean, I think this 5 year run for the Clippers is going to go down as just as disappointing as the theoretical concept of the big three we saw for Brooklyn with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. Like, I think that this version of the Clippers over the last 5 years goes down as like one of the like worst outcome theoretical teams we've seen conjoined together like in NBA history. Like when you weigh what we expected from them or what the expectations around that team was compared to what the actual results were. Because this team clearly, I think even Paul George would say it, underachieved massively compared to what people thought that day when they saw Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are signing with the LA Clippers. Like, and shout out to OKC, man. Like
I was
OKC
gonna say
won the trade by
that'd be fine.
far at this point.
I mean, that's basically what I was gonna say. That I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't help that SGA was the one that you had to send in return. It doesn't help that one of the draft picks that you sent over turned out to be Jalen Williams. So like, it's just a really unfortunate situation for the Clippers. They did what they had to do. I think if they like were told that they had to do it all over again, they would do the exact same thing because the deal with Paul George was able to secure Kawhi. So it was kind of like a two-edged sword there. If you didn't do it, then Kawhi wouldn't have came, and and if you even if you did so, you had to make the trade happen. But at the end of the day, you made it work, and these guys just couldn't stay on the court enough. That was just basically the whole story with this Clippers team, and they really, like you mentioned, they did really underachieve in 5 years. So yeah, Paul George to Philly, great deal for them. Let's see if he's gonna be able to get one championship to end off his career. Jay, next deal you want to discuss? Where do you want to go?
So the next one that I have depends on who you are, but this one's a little bit more low key. The Thunder get Isaiah Hartenstein from the Knicks in what was a 3-year, $87 million, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Deal. And like the reason why I refer to this as low key is because obviously Isaiah Hartenstein doesn't command a whole lot of star power or anything like that. But TV, we had said this during the actual NBA playoffs in that series against Indiana, maybe even before that Isaiah Hartenstein was playing himself into a bag. And TV, you told me before we hopped on the pod, like, you thought he was going to get like 25 mil as the quote unquote bag. Well, 29 million,
almost 30 million.
Almost 30 mil a year is
a bit of a shock.
It's a pretty high price point, and it goes to tell you just how much space that the Oklahoma City Thunder have, considering the fact that they're able to get Isaiah Hartenstein, bring in an Alex Caruso, who of course was a 1-for-1 trade, but also still bringing back an Isaiah Joe, bringing back who am I forgetting?
Aaron Wiggins.
Aaron Wiggins as well.
Yeah.
And both on like very team friendly deals, to be honest, as well.
Big W deals for them as well. Yeah.
But I think the biggest question, and I'll let you go first, is like, how do you believe that Isaiah Hartenstein fits on this team? Not necessarily just like in terms of like lineup construction, but like, what do you think he brings to this team?
He brings a different sort of big style than Chet Holmgren does. Because let's be honest, the biggest thing against that, funnily enough, they had to face against the Dallas Mavericks, but they faced multiple bigs in that series, and Chet Holmgren just could not rebound with them. That was Chet Holmgren 7-1, but let's be honest, his more of a slender frame just could not body up with Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. Isaiah Hartenstein was one of the better rebounders in the league this season, and he's going to bring that aspect to the team. Obviously, his in-between game from the paint and with the floaters and everything is massive. The passing from the big man position is also massive with Isaiah Hartenstein. And of course, they still keep the defensive identity. Someone has to freaking sue Sam Presti or something, because he keeps getting away with highway robbery. The fact that they didn't have to give up a single pick, and this year they were able to bring back their guys, sign Isaiah Hartenstein, and bring in Alex Caruso without giving up a singular draft pick, not even a second rounder, just goes to show just OKC management just knowing exactly what needs to happen and knowing time and place, because they don't have to pay Chet Holmgren yet. They don't have to pay Jalen Williams yet. You know what they do with this cap space? They bring in a difference maker to same position, their biggest need, and they got probably the best guy on the market for that. 100%. And they made sure that the contract doesn't coincide with the other contracts. I mean, Jalen Williams probably is going to get paid on the final year of Isaiah Hartenstein, but you don't have to pay Chet Holmgren until after that Isaiah Hartenstein deal is done. So they know exactly what's going on, and who knows what they're going to do with these draft picks. Obviously, they're not going to draft everyone with their 40-something draft picks, but they can, with the pieces they have and the young talent they have already, trades can happen. Isaiah Hartenstein, I'm not going to say that he's going to be traded, but maybe a year or two down the line, it's an easier contract to trade because it's in near the $25 to $30 million range. OKC knows exactly what they're doing, and they not only improve, but they set themselves up very nicely for the next 4 years already, just to compete right away.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think one of the biggest things we learned in the Western Conference is these bigs are good. Bigs are good across the board. We saw with the combination of Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Naz Reid was able to do against a Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic still exists.
Yes.
Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively as a combination that we saw this postseason. You go across the board.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. We didn't see them in the postseason really effective this year. But Anthony Davis, yes, that's another. You look across this Western Conference, and you have to be able to compete at that spot. And the biggest thing outside of defensively that the Thunder struggled with, you mentioned it earlier, they were one of the worst rebounding teams in the league last year. And it's sad to say because they were one of the most dynamic teams in the open floor and one of the better teams in terms of operating in the half court. But offensive rebounding, creating creating more offensive opportunity for themselves. One of the worst teams in the league. Rebounding in general, like you said, they had a 7'1" guy in Chet Holmgren starting, but he didn't feel 7'1" massive when it came to
Yeah.
being able to help them collect on the glass. Isaiah Hartenstein was one of the best offensive rebounders in the league last year and one of the better rebounders in general last season. That gives him a completely different dynamic. And then in terms of guarding, you just need another big body. Remember, TV, I think I mentioned this to you before the offseason started. Like, what if the Oklahoma City Thunder brought back a Steven Adams? Remember, I had like brought up the concept of like
Yeah.
maybe them bringing back a guy like that, just off of the mere fact that like they just need another physical presence on the inside next to a
Could
Chet
be.
Holmgren.
Yeah, could be for sure.
And although Steven Adams wasn't the guy they went after, Isaiah Hartenstein gives them a lot of those same aspects. While a very underrated thing you mentioned, the passing that Isaiah Hartenstein provides them makes it where although he doesn't contribute to like the 5-out run and gun style we saw last season, his ability to facilitate out of the high and low post is going to open up the floor for this team so much more in terms of what they're going to be able to do. And they still lack shooting in a way that I think they just are not really going to be able to address across the board. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Isaiah Joe are still like their best shooting guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still one of their trickiest elements. But Alex Caruso is a 38, 39% three-point shooter when he wants to. Chet Holmgren, I think, can really get up
better,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Jalen
like
Williams can get better too.
Jalen Williams as well. Like, I think there's a world where if this team can improve their shooting ability on the outside, it's going to further unlock Isaiah Hartenstein. We saw what Isaiah Hartenstein did as a facilitator during the postseason on a team that had no spacing at all
Right.
when it came to the New York Knicks. Now you have a team in the Oklahoma City Thunder who do have legitimate spacing threats. They just gotta knock the shots down now.
Yeah, it's a great deal for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's like one of my favorite. Like what their offseason is one of like probably one of the better ones in this like throughout all the teams in the NBA right now. We didn't even mention the fact that they drafted Nikola Topic with a lottery pick, and he's coming like next year. So
yeah, I was gonna say not. I was saying I don't believe it's next season, but I think that but again, that's another Chet Holmgren-esque kind of opportunity. Like you get a year around an organization that's still building towards something. Hopefully they can kind of help him with his shot. And let's be honest, they kind of grabbed him as like a Josh Giddey-esque kind of player with a little bit more team control.
I was gonna say like there's a bit more skill, yeah,
and maybe a little bit more skill off ball, more particularly.
Yes,
like
for sure,
there's a lot of interesting stuff with that Nikola Topic draft as well that makes it where like, yo, like this team is coming, bro. People are saying that the Thunder are like a Western Conference favorite right now. Like that's where people are.
They're here, bro. They're here. They're already here, and they're gonna make some noise. And it's scary that they still have all this draft capital. All these guys, like most of their young core is like 25 and under at this point. It's scary how good this team could be. So, the fact that Oklahoma City was able to get Isaiah Hartenstein, again, the deal is kind of surprising how big it was, but deal needed to be done. Big time moves for the OKC Thunder. All right, moving to the next one. I want to mention this because we talked about a couple of bigs that they have to that the Thunder have to deal with in the West, and Nikola Jokic, Daniel Gafford, and all that. So Isaiah Hartenstein's going to help. They're definitely going to need him because the San Antonio Spurs are coming, Wemby's coming, and now they bring in their point guard, Chris Paul. This is the deal I want to talk about next because I feel like this is the perfect point guard to put on the San Antonio Spurs roster. We were talking about addressing the point guard position to kind of replace Trey Jones. Well, they got their point guard in the future in Stephon Castle, and now they bring in someone who can play as a mentor to Stephon, but also can just give Wemby just absolute like dimes, whether it's in the half court on the fast break, hitting him for three. CP3 is like the perfect point guard to play next to him, and now like matching his mind with Greg Popovich's. I feel like this is a match made in heaven.
I think that you have to look at this CP deal, especially for what it actually like. Look at the number: 1 year, $11 million, right? So you have to look at that for exactly what the heck it says. And when you view it from the perspective of like, this is an $11 million rental for a 38, 39-year-old point guard that has very real like seniority within this league, obviously, right? But also has a legitimate history of like helping teams that have like, that are like in this phase that the San Antonio Spurs ironically are on, or currently like in at the moment. He is a guy who I think is going to really like unlock a lot of like these. So I view this as like a budget version of what the Houston Rockets did with Fred VanVleet, essentially.
Oh, yes.
Like the concept is this guy isn't here to help you guys get to the playoffs necessarily. If he does that, great. That's a cherry on top of what our actual expectations are. But the reality is we are trying to see who sticks on this roster long term, who is worth investing long-term development in, and who are the guys that when we say young core, who are the guys that we view legitimately as untouchables outside of Victor Wembanyama, obviously. And Chris Paul is going to help unlock that. We've seen what he's done. We've seen what he's done on young teams before. We saw what he did on a moribund franchise with the LA Clippers. We saw what he did in his season with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
He helps Gilgeous Alexander a lot.
A ton. And I think those are the kind of things that I can't find the graphic right now, but I saved it. I saved it the other day. But it was like this graphic, like kind of introducing like the or like it was illustrating the concept of like the Chris Paul effect. And it was basically like every team.
I've seen that one.
It was like every single
percentage
team
has gone up. The winning percentage has gone up for every team this season he joins.
Every single, like the very following season, like you just see this burst from the team where they just completely outperform expectations. Right. And obviously, I think the most notable and the most relatable team that we've seen him go to in recent history that compares to the San Antonio team kind of is that Oklahoma City Thunder team that we saw make a playoff series out of their matchup versus the Houston Rockets that year in the bubble.
They almost won that, yeah.
Yeah, they almost won it. And I would make the argument that I believe that Victor Wembanyama in year 2 is better than any player that Chris Paul played next to that season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't that caliber of player during that time frame with Chris Paul. Dennis Schroeder wasn't that guy. Danilo Gallinari wasn't that guy. I don't think that Oklahoma City Thunder team had a talent nearly as good as Victor Wembanyama. And then when you flesh that out with a Devin Vassell, with a Jeremy Sohan, you still have
Keldon on the team.
You still have Keldon. You just drafted Stephon Castle. Yeah. Like, I think their overall core, just from a core standpoint, is much more talented than the group we saw Chris Paul go to the playoffs with in 2020. And that doesn't mean I'm saying that the San Antonio Spurs are going to go to the playoffs. Yeah. This is a completely different Western Conference now, too, right? Obviously.
But he has
Wemby. And that's the part where this learning curve really kicks in, where it's like, maybe they don't make the playoffs, but like, could this be like a feisty play-in tournament team? Like, could they really? Like,
it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure.
I don't think it is, especially when you look at the fact that I think the West evened out this year. There was a point where the West felt like a dogfight, to the point where like it felt a little ridiculous to pick anybody safely as like this is the team I think is coming out the West. I think this year is a lot similar to years past of like, I don't know who the best team in the West is, but I don't think it's so top heavy like it used to be. Like,
no, for sure. Yeah.
It's definitely not top heavy where like you see those top 3-4 teams and you're like, somebody out of that group is coming out of it. You saw Golden State, to me, they're in a weird phase. We'll see what happens with the Lauri Markkanen stuff, but like they're in a weird phase transitioning off of like a Klay Thompson, right? Obviously the Lakers, I don't think the Lakers got like better by any means this summer. The Clippers, I don't think they got better by losing Paul George, right? Like there's teams in this Western Conference that are getting knocked down a peg. That means these other teams have a real chance. And so, yeah, I'm not trying to pitch San Antonio to the postseason or anything, but like I think the Chris Paul effect is a real thing. That's the overall point I'm trying to get to. Is I think that the Chris Paul effect is actually a real thing, and if that is as real as I believe it is, this San Antonio Spurs team is going to be super fun to watch this year, but
Yeah.
B, I think they're going to be so much better as a squad from day one, which is going to make it where they are going to be a real threat the entire year. Because Victor Wembanyama, if he showed us anything, he does want to play winning basketball. He is not he's interested in the rebuilding aspect of this team, but we know he wants to be playing winning basketball sooner rather than later.
100%. And if Victor Wembanyama is is gonna jump from whatever he was last year to a potentially like a top 15, maybe even possibly top 10 player in his second year, then maybe your thing doesn't seem as too far fetched as it seems to be, because Victor is that guy. And if you pair him, like we told him, give him a real point guard, see what happens. This is gonna be the real test. If he can like really elevate his game next to Chris Paul, then who knows what the Spurs could be this year. All we know is that there's going to be some teams in the West left disappointed, because there's like 12 to 13 teams like competing, and there's going to be a few teams disappointed. But we're going to have to wait and see how that goes. CB3 to the Spurs is a damn good move. Jay, what was another move that you want to discuss?
So my last like quote unquote big move that I was like really like intrigued by was Orlando throwing some bread at KCP. Like,
yeah.
I thought this was huge. Now, it doesn't solve their point guard problem. It does make me feel like they're leaning more into the defensive element of what made their team so good last year. I also think this shows that they really believe. I think the Orlando Magic really believe in Jalen Suggs at point guard. I think that's what this told me.
Yeah.
Markelle Fultz is still, on the open market as of us recording this. Yes, they do still have the assets to maybe go after a Darius Garland or an Anthony Simons, or if depending on where Atlanta stands with this whole Trae Young thing, like they still have the asset control to be able to like put together a real package to go after a dynamic point guard, like one of the three guys I just named. But there's the other road that they can take, which seems like at the moment the path that they are going to be engaging on, which is let's just do a super scary built out lineup that just like has defensive versatility, like blowing smoke out from everywhere, right? Jalen Suggs at the 1, KCP at the 2, Franz Wagner 3, Paulo Banchero 4, Wendell Carter at the 3. Still bring back Jonathan Isaac. Like, this team defensively is going to be a bear next year. Like,
yes. I mean, they were already really good last year. I think it's going to get better this year. And I think this KCP deal not only addresses the defense, which already improves on the defense, which they had already, but they really needed shooting. They really need shooting. And and I mean, bad.
Yes.
Bad. We talked about how it was the ugly stepchild of the first round, the Cavs versus Magic, mostly because the Cavs were shooting better than the Magic from the three-point line, even though it wasn't by much, but the Magic just could not hit a shot. So bringing KCP helps that. Honestly, to really cap up this offseason, if they can somehow sign Gary Trent Jr. as like a backup too with that team, I think that would be the absolute cherry on top, and I think that will help out with the spacing a lot. But I think this deal is absolutely massive. We know that they're going to throw the bag to one of these guards. It was either Klay Thompson, was it going to be KCP, and it turned out to be KCP. This really hurts the Denver Nuggets, mind you. This really does. But this is a huge gift for the Orlando Magic. Adds a veteran presence to the locker room, which I really don't see anyone else in that roster really giving. And we got like a true NBA champion, a big part of an NBA champion, which from 2 years ago. So KCP is massive. This just leaves Denver in a really tough place now, and I really don't know where they're going.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about Denver because it just doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. Like, it seems like their only real flexibility moving forward is going to be that Michael Porter Jr. might have to get moved off of in order for them to get some real depth. They are putting a lot of faith in some of these young guys that they had or young/older guys they drafted the last couple of seasons. Like, only the Memphis Grizzlies they're the only other team that I know of that's put this much faith into like internal development as like their way out. Like Denver is really banking on like
Come on, Julian
like
Strother. Come
yeah,
on.
Julian Strother, Hunter Salas, like they're really banking on like some real internal growth to bail them out. And I just don't know if it's gonna help them.
That's the only route they have. I mean, they've been drafting these guys. They drafted that center, who I think is going to help right away. Let's be honest. I do think he's going to be big for them, but they're really hoping for that. I mean, Christian Brown, they're hoping for him to take the next step. Maybe they see him as the KCP replacement. They're like, you know what, we can let him walk. But man, you're going to be paying you're paying Nikola Jokic. You're going to end up paying Jamal Murray more. You're probably going to have to move up Michael Porter Jr. just to get more depth, and you want to bring back Aaron Gordon to this team. So we knew this is going to be a problem eventually, but the last 2 seasons it's been kind of like slowly deteriorating for the Denver Nuggets, and they're going to need to kind of bounce back to kind of keep themselves at the near the top of title contention because they have the best player in the league, but they need to make some moves in order to get back the depth that they had in that championship run.
First Bruce Brown, now KCP. I mean, man, talk about falling from grace. I love this Denver team in terms of what they have conceptually, but in terms of what they're moving towards, I mean, like Nikola Jokic is about to be, what's he like 30, 31? Like, let's like really respect the fact that this man has like maybe 3-4 like seasons left of like real, you know,
MVP caliber basketball.
Like real elite level basketball left. And it feels like they're cheapening out like at the time when you really need to be maximizing the most. Yeah. And it makes me really worried. One other like really quick point on KCP in terms of his fit with Orlando, not just the shooting, because I thought that was a really important point by you to throw out the fact that they really just needed 3-point shooting and spacing in general last year. Point of attack defense is like going to be really important for them in the Eastern Conference.
Him and Jalen Suggs on the perimeter is going to be
nasty. Because we just saw with Derek White, we just saw the importance of Derek White next to Jrue Holiday, and clearly this is not that, right?
Yeah,
that's still like a tier above from a defensive standpoint on the perimeter. But
pretty close though. It's pretty close.
It's pretty damn good when you think about how good Jalen Suggs has been defensively. But I mean, you have to remember, I mean, the reason they couldn't get out of that series against Cleveland was because Jalen Suggs could only hold up but so well up against Donovan Mitchell. And it was legit just Donovan Mitchell because Darius Garland had easily one of his, worst stretches we've seen basically, panning back to when he was an all-star a few seasons ago during that postseason run. So like they just need another perimeter stopper kind of guy to really help hold down the fort next to a Jalen Suggs, to help and to also add on top of all this defensive versatility that they showed off last year. KCP is like the perfect mixture between like tackling their shooting needs while adding like a real veteran presence while giving you that defensive anchor at the guard position that like every team wants. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, no, they got exactly what they need in KCP. And yes, it's a 3-year, $66 million deal, but that's well worth it. Especially for a starter in the NBA, it is well worth it. So that is a good deal for the Orlando Magic. Again, if they can cap off with Gary Trent Jr. somehow getting him as their sixth man coming off the bench, I think that would be like exactly what they need in the offseason to address those needs. So let's see if the Orlando Magic is done. I don't think they're done yet, but let's see if there's any other moves they can make. Jay, the last deals I want to talk about was, funnily enough, the Golden State Warriors, and basically their needs to try and make up for the departure of Klay Thompson. So they made some moves, and they have one move that's basically almost done, but we're gonna have to. This might materialize in like a day or two. But so far, the Golden State Warriors did a sign trade for Kyle Anderson, 3 years, $27 million deal. They used their mid-level exception on signing DeAnthony Melton, and it's almost all but confirmed. But Buddy Hield is on the way to the Golden State Warriors, in a sign and trade as well. So you have all these three guys coming in. There's rumors about them going for Lauri Markkanen. You still got to maximize these Steph Curry years, but you also don't want to maximize, like, get rid of the future to the point where you feel like you're like a step away. So like I know there's like rumors that maybe Jonathan Kuminga could be a part of the deal. There are rumors that Moses Moody and stuff like that. I think that if the Warriors can make any deals that don't include those guys, and while still bringing in, the Heels, the Melton, they brought in Slow-Mo, and potentially Lauri Markkanen, if they could do that, maybe they still have a chance. But at this point, Jay, even with the deals they made, yes, they got some good role players. try to convince me that this is still going to be a competitive team or like near in the playoff picture.
Okay, so the best way that I can kind of phrase this where like realistically it plays out is that this team needed more offensive creation in a real way. And the best way to go about doing that, it seemed like, is by committee. We know DeAnthony Melton can score the basketball. We know what Buddy Hield is able to do as a three-point shooter. Remember, built like Steph, built like Steph, shoot like Clay, or like built like Clay, shoot like Steph, one of the two. But like, you know how that whole thing goes with Buddy Hield in terms of his ability to stretch the floor. And then slow-mo, he gives you real wing versatility, not necessarily a knockdown shooter or anything, but just a very good decision maker with the ball, a guy who can, just help facilitate an offense from the wing spot and gives them another like burly, big body defender. This is one of those things that they're trying to get Klay Thompson in the version of depth. So instead of trying to get Klay Thompson as just bringing back Klay Thompson, right, the one guy, they're trying to do this by getting a committee of guys to hopefully fulfill multiple roles, in a cheaper, more in sync version of what the Golden State Warriors hope to bring in next year. I think personally, that if they're able to get this Lauri Markkanen deal done, if there is any real legs to this, I think they're a top 5 team in the Western Conference next year. Like, for real. Like, Draymond Green is still a dangerous defensive menace at the 4 spot. He just is.
Yes.
Steph Curry, I still think can be I think Stephen Curry is still like a legitimate like top option on a championship caliber team.
Yeah, for sure. No,
Lauri Markkanen can play between your 3 and your 4. It makes him so versatile in terms of what he can provide on both sides of the ball, but of course, especially offensively. And I like Trace Jackson Davis at the center spot. I like that they have Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton. I actually like the Kyle Anderson deal a lot for them on the wing. I think they're a Lauri Markkanen deal away from like being considered as like a top contender in the Western Conference. I think right now they still have the bare bones of a team that like is going to be in the top 8, but where in the top 8 you scratch your head and kind of have to wonder. But I think if they can get like a Lauri Markkanen thing done, I think they easily stamp themselves as a top 5 squad in the West because they're just still going to be so talented. And TV, I want to like ask you this question, and Warriors fans might not be super receptive to this, so it'll be interesting to see like where you come from as a guy like that's a lot more impartial. But like, how much better does Klay Thompson make the Warriors next year if they brought him back? Especially when considering that part of the conversation was around Klay Thompson coming off the bench for their team next year. How much better does he really make them if the Warriors bring him back next year?
Oh, no, I would feel the same way if it like the way I feel like the Warriors about right now is the same way I would have felt if Klay Thompson was brought back. I don't think it was going to be much. Now, Buddy Hield, in terms of like his inconsistencies, especially over the last season, that's something interesting, especially because Klay Thompson was pretty inconsistent from on the offensive basis last year. But at the same time, their defense for me is still quite an issue. Their size is still a bit of an issue. Does Lauri Markkanen, even though being a 10-footer, does he like make up for the fact that they're going to be missing some big man depth, especially because they're probably going to let Kevon Looney walk? I don't know. Like, there's still for me a lot of question marks with this team. And at the end of the day, Steph Curry's still a top 5 player in the league. I just don't think like Andrew Wiggins is not going to get back to what he once was. Draymond Green, as much as he is still a integral part of this team, he is no longer the Draymond Green that he was from like 4 or 5 seasons ago. This team is just aging out, and I think that yes, they got to still take advantage of the Steph years, but at the same time, they got to be realistic in saying like, are we close enough to a championship where is it worth like going all in on trying to make sure that we're making sure that Steph's like final years are being, not being wasted? And I
I
don't
wonder
think
if this is TV's PC way of trying to say that the Warriors dynasty is cooked. TV, Kendrick Perkins has been wrong before and admitted it. You can say it with your chest if you think their
oh no.
dynasty is cooked.
Oh no. If I didn't make it clear, yeah, the Warriors dynasty is cooked. If I didn't make it clear enough, I think it's cooked. I think it's a good way to send off. There's no harm. This wasn't gonna last forever. Come on, guys. This wasn't gonna last forever. 4 championships in 9 years. You can't. There's nothing wrong with that. And Warrior fans are crying saying, "Oh, we didn't give like Clay the right send off. The front office did him dirty." People move on. We've seen Tony Parker in a freaking Charlotte Hornets on a Charlotte Hornets jersey.
Yeah, you're right.
These we've seen like stuff like end away, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's okay. I'm not gonna be sad that the Warriors are down. They got the most out of like what you can out of these 9 years. Teams would die to have a chance of having 4 championships in 9 years. They had their dynasty. This is the closest thing we had to a modern NBA dynasty, and they got a lot out of it. No disappointment whatsoever. Yeah. But it's okay to say it's the end.
Okay. Yeah, I just think the one caveat I would throw in like with that though is like if any player really got the short end of the stick from the dynasty, it was definitely Clay. Like the fact that Draymond Green has been able to like move the way he's moved for like the last couple of years now still get awarded 4 years, $100 million last season, basically without even having to step up to the table. It just feels very like backhanded by the Warriors when you think about what they've been able to do for guys like Steph Curry, for guys like Draymond Green. But then when it was Klay Thompson's turn to have that negotiation, it seemed like he was only getting further talked down into a hole of needing to play like good soldier. And I felt like all he did was be a good trooper the entire time he was with the Golden State Warriors organization. He was looking for one more big payday, and for some reason, they didn't acquiesce that, despite the fact that he might have been the most like stand-up guy of that entire group. Like, not that Steph Curry wasn't like a great representation either or anything, but like Klay Thompson literally was bring your lunch pail to work and do the damn thing every single night. He guarded the best player in the early tenure of this dynasty. He was the second best shooter on the team, second best shooter in the damn league for the longest. And when it came down to even those years where like the team was struggling, like, you know, he never let that discourage him from the opportunity of like being able to come back and saying like, yo, this team can still be as good as we were before I got hurt and so on and so forth. So I think that he just, if anybody got the short end of the stick, though, I definitely think it was Klay Thompson because, like, he's a consummate pro. I think it was represented the entire time throughout them, you know, their winning ways.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, again, he is like someone who is like, we're not gonna take away like how great he has been through the dynasty. I know people like making the 0 out of 10 in an elimination game, and of course, you know, if that's the last thing we saw from him, of course, it's valid. But we can't take away from the fact that during his Warriors tenure, most threes in the game, most points in a quarter in NBA history. We've seen like Klay go absolutely nuclear. We've seen how big he could play. We know about Game 6 Klay. Provided us all these moments. That's why that's why like you can't say that this has been like whatever happens here now has like been a disaster because it really hasn't. It just things have to come to an end eventually, and unfortunately it has to end this way. But things do have to come to an end. Ask any dynasty ever. So it's just like it happens right now. He has a good spot there, and you know the Warriors are starting to retool, and let's see if they can still make the most out of the last Steph Curry years. Any other thoughts before we move on to the extensions?
No, I mean, in terms of just the Golden State Warriors dynasty as a whole, I think I agree with you that I think we're definitely on the back nine for real this time. Because I know that many said they were cooked and then they messed around and won the championship a few seasons ago. So,
yeah,
you know, but I think this is definitely one of those years where it looks like Golden State really is going to be in a bind. Damn, man. I mean, you look at this. You look at some of the teams that we mentioned, you know, the Clippers, the Golden State Warriors. You can also look at teams like Denver losing KCP. There's a lot of these teams where like this second apron thing has really spooked some of these teams that usually have their checkbooks out. Like Golden State and the Clippers, they've never been afraid to spend money. And this year, shivering at the thought of throwing out money that's like above a certain, you know, a certain cap hold. Like they're just this second apron thing, whether it's real or not, it is the biggest boogeyman in the league right now. Like, there's not a single player more scarier. There's not a single player in the league scarier than the two words second apron right now, bro. Like, for real.
Honestly. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens when people actually like hit it, and like we're gonna see the ramifications afterwards. But people don't even want to test it. No one even wants to test it right now. It's gonna be interesting to see when that threshold is met. And to be honest, it could still be Golden State at this point. But but we're gonna have to wait and see the actual ramifications, because from what we look at, it's actually pretty serious. So maybe that'll continue to scare teams off. And I think this like them like losing Klay Thompson kind of signals the end of the super team era. Like, we're not with the whole second apron and the way you have to build teams now. You need a more like get something from free agency. You need to have the right draft picks. You have to have the star player. You need a bit of everything. And I think this is what's creating like this whole parity in the league right now. And I love it as a basketball fan right now. I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. All right. But yeah, those are some of the free agency moves listed down below. Next week, we're actually going to talk about more of like the winners and losers once the dust settles. So be on the lookout for that episode. But yeah, a lot of this is the big free agency moves we want to make that we want to talk about. Before we move on to the other segments of the show, we want to talk about some of the extensions that happened. And Jay, I'm just going to name you the extension. If you want to jump in and you want to give your quick thoughts on it, go ahead. But I'm just going to go through some of the ones that for teams that actually brought back their players. Mm-hmm. First up, Donovan Mitchell, Cleveland Cavaliers, 3 years, $155 million. People were wondering if he was going to come back or not, but he's ended up staying, which is massive for the team. Yeah. Next up, the Toronto Raptors bring back both Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley. Scottie Barnes on a 5-year, $226 million deal. It can go up to $270 if he makes All-NBA next season. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't think that's going to happen, but that's still a possibility. Scottie Barnes being brought back on a big deal, and Emmanuel Quickley being brought back on a 5-year, $175 million deal. People are thinking it's an overpay, but I'll tell you right now, once that new TV deal kicks in, it's going to look pretty normal in a little bit. Other deals I want to mention here, Jay, jump in if you want to talk about this one. Patrick Williams, 5 years, $90 million deal to your Chicago Bulls. I like the deals that we made, but we were questioning whether, like, what's the amount that they're going to bring back Patrick Williams at, and this is the amount that they settled on. What are your quick thoughts on it?
I mean, I think bringing in Jalen Smith and also bringing back Patrick Williams on that 5-year, $90 million deal, I think you just look at everything. TV, we talked about this last pod. Stealth tank, I'm telling you, they're trying to do it in the stealthiest way possible, but it's hilarious because it almost feels obvious. You know what I'm saying? They bring in Matas, you bring in Josh Giddey, you re-sign Patrick Williams, you bring in Jalen Smith as a promising young center, like who's still like in his developmental stages, considering the fact that like on both the Phoenix Suns and the Indiana Pacers, we never really got to see his real capabilities as a straight stretch big. We just know the theory of him as a stretch 4, stretch 5 type. But you just look, obviously we still have Kobe White, we still have Ayo Dosunmu. Like, when you look at the makeup of our team and you pair that with the fact that the Bulls are apparently shopping Lonzo Ball, they've apparently called everybody and their mama about Zach LaVine. Apparently we're kind of like in the midst of talking to Sacramento Kings at the moment. Obviously DeMar DeRozan definitely not coming back, whether it comes in the version of a sign and trade or he just ends up walking in general. It has been made more than clear that DeMar DeRozan is not coming back. Everything about this team screams youth movement. Everything about this team. And Jalen Smith, to me, even more so than the Patrick Williams signing, Jalen Smith being brought into me is the nail in the coffin that says we're about to go younger. When you look across the board, you look at every position we have depth-wise at the moment. If we threw the ball out today and said, what is the starting 5? Everybody except the center position is probably under 25 years old.
Yes. You guys picked the direction. Finally did. Maybe a little too late, but at least you guys did it. At least you're going in that direction. It's going to be a tough couple of years. I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to be a tough couple of years for you Bulls fans. Honestly, for the Raps fans, it might be the same way, but I think we kind of maybe have a bit more talent at the moment. But it was a very interesting deal. He got basically the Duncan Robinson deal, if you remember from a few years ago. He got the same amount of money. But I think like on that type of deal, you kind of take it and you just hope that he just continues to develop more and at least he gets more of an opportunity going forward. So I think that's a good deal for Patrick Williams. Other deals that were made, James Harden returning to the Clippers, 2 years, $70 million deal. That kind of screwed over the Paul George situation. But there you go. But yeah, James Harden's back. So next year, in the toilet arena, you got James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. Will they be on the court or not? We'll have to wait and see. Check out next season's LA Clippers. Other deals that were made, Kelly Oubre being brought back from the 76ers, 2-year, $60 million deal. In my opinion, that was a steal.
Yes.
It's a steal of a contract, pretty good. And then Tyrese Maxey, 5 years, $200 million. We knew it was coming, and the fact they were able to lock up one of the better young guards in the league, awesome. People were thinking if Obi Toppin was going to leave the Pacers. Nope, 4-year, $60 million deal. He returns to the Pacers. That's
That's an interesting one. I'm surprised that he had as much interest to go back as they did to throw him that money. Just because I wonder where he lands on the depth chart. Like, just personally, like, I just wonder where he ranks. Now, them not bringing back Jalen Smith, I think opens up some space for him if he wants to play small ball 4. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting because I think that in that lull period before Pascal Siakam showed up, like, he was having a pretty good year. And then when he kind of got knocked down a peg, he kind of reverted back into the guy that you kind of wonder about, like, where his potential lies, you know?
Yeah. I also think, like, what made him want to come back is that, you know, that playoff run he had it pretty good. Like, him and TJ McConnell off the bench were absolutely killer in the playoffs this past season. So if they're still going with this fast-paced offense, if they still want to run that, you want to have someone like Obi Toppin on your team. And I think someone where you can interchange him and Pascal Siakam and still kind of get the same fast-paced sort of play from both of them. I think that was good, and it's a team-friendly deal too for the Pacers. 4 years, $60 million. That's not bad. Good deal for Obi Toppin. News from today, from they were recording, LeBron James, 2 years, $104 million deal. Jay, what was the list that he said that he was willing to take a pay cut for?
Bro, okay, so for everybody who didn't see, there's no way. For those who didn't see, LeBron James apparently had put out a relatively short list of like players that like he basically wanted the Lakers to go after. And these were the guys that he was like willing to take up to $20 million worth of a pay cut for. So he was willing to kind of take a decent haircut if it meant signing these guys. So DeMar DeRozan was on the list. He's probably out of the contention now that LeBron has signed this 2-year max deal, just considering the way the math works, unless it's some kind of signing trade that probably involves D'Lo and or Austin Reeves. But Klay Thompson was on that list. He's on the Dallas Mavericks now. Jonas Valanciunas was on that list. He is over with, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Wizards, right? So there's the Wizards. And then James Harden, ironically, was another guy that was on that list. And he went back to the rival team, the Clippers. So I guess he saw his three or four main guys go off the board. He's like, well, I'm going to go get my paper then. And next thing you know, what's that, 51? No. I think it was
million.
52 million a year. And TV. The only other no trade clause in the NBA outside of Bradley Beal.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. They weren't going to trade him anyway.
Like, of course. Yeah, but like, it's hilarious to think that there's only 2 guys that have a no trade clause in the NBA in 2024, and one is LeBron James, and the other is Bradley Beal. Like,
good job, Wizards. Good job, Wizards, for giving him that contract, bro.
No, for real.
Who thought it was a good idea to give Bradley Beal no trade clause? Nice job.
Hey, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, you know, we all make mistakes, Stevie. It's just you just didn't know it would cost you so many millions of dollars. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only thing.
This is why no trade clauses like don't exist in contract, but somehow, some way, Bradley Beal got one. Nice job. Yeah. But yeah, other ones. I mean, we talked about it. The OKC Thunder brought back Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. We talked about how great of a deal that was. And again, team-friendly deals. Awesome move for them.
Yes.
The Orlando Magic brought back basically everyone. Mo Wagner, Goga Batadze. We talked about the Jonathan Isaac deal. Our boy, who we talked about trying to get back into the Orlando Magic rotation, is getting the bag. And last but not least, the Celtics brought back everyone.
Pretty much.
Signed Derek White to that 4-year. What was it? I think it was like 4-year, like $130 million.
It was like It was like 132 or 131, something like that. It was hefty. It was hefty, but he earned it. He earned it though.
100% earned it. And then they also signed Jason Tatum to the biggest contract in NBA history.
Ooh, child, man. And somehow all he's gonna do is set the market, because once the TV deal hits the first time next year, then I believe it's Luka. Is like Luka and Shea are like the 2 next ones or something like that.
Jalen Brunson is next year. Jalen Brunson is up for contract next year.
Christ. This number is going to get exponential. TV, real quick, kind of to piggyback off of extensions a little bit. Who are some of the guys that, as of us still recording this, are still on the market that you think are just like interesting that like they don't have a home yet? Like maybe by the time we actually drop the vid, maybe they'll land wherever that is that they're mainly rumored to. But like, who are some of the guys that like quote unquote are like honorable mention in the sense of like they're gonna find a home eventually before before July, definitely before like the second week of July is over. A lot of these teams are gonna be set, I think, for the most part. Who are some of the guys that like are still out in the open market that like intrigue you a little bit? Like, do you have anybody like kind of on a little mini list?
I I guess so. I mean, like the people like I was thinking of was Gary Trent Jr. I mentioned him a lot here. I just feel like he could give like just the shooting ability and just like you know explosive scoring and going forward. Of course, we know that DeMar DeRozan is going to find a place eventually. It's like almost like basically confirmed that he's going to be going somewhere. Tyus Jones, our boy Tyus Jones, is still out there in the market, so we don't know.
Yeah, that's
so we don't know where
them.
he's going to end up. But I think Gary Trent Jr. more than anything, because I think that there's still a few teams that mainly looking at the Pistons, mainly looking at the Magic. I think they're the two teams that can potentially give him like a sizable deal, especially as a 23-year-old who was like one of the best corner three-point specialists in the league last year. So just especially him, because I don't think the Toronto Raptors are going to bring him back. I'm just interested to see where he lands.
I feel you. I think that Miles Bridges is still one for me. Still kind of intrigued about where that's going to land. Your boy Kyle Lowry, interested to see if Philly's able to still throw some money back at him to be able to bring him back on the books. Very surprised about Malik Beasley, just knockdown shooter at the end of the day. Like, there's been no buzz at all really around him. This is like the second time he's hit the open market. It has been a lot quieter than I expected. Caleb Martin is another one on the wing that I just think like what is going on with that? Like his skill set, we've seen it with the Miami Heat, and maybe people are just afraid of like the Miami Heat guys because like you just never know what they're gonna look like after they leave the Miami Heat, know, structure. But like Caleb Martin, another guy, and then obviously as a Bulls fan, as the mutual fan of this guy on the podcast, we have to figure out where the hell DeMar DeRozan is going to go. We have to know where he's going to go. As like the staple guy of the podcast, I just want to see DeMar DeRozan end up in a good situation. I knew it wasn't going to be the Bulls. I'm just intrigued to see where it does end up shaking out to be, because it's not too many teams left with some bread out there, and his fit is very unique to like the kind of teams that like they. Just because teams have money does not mean that DeMar DeRozan fits on that.
That's the answer, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see again. This just the play that brings both a Bulls fan and a Raps fan together. DeMar DeRozan, we always support this guy no matter what. So we want to see if he ends up in a good situation. Let us know what you guys think down below about the remaining free agents, about the extensions we just discussed, the free agents we discussed. Let us know all your thoughts down below. Jay, we're going to move on to the next topic, and it is the staple of the Hit Your Free Throw Spot, which is the NBA draft. And Jay, we talked about the new TV deal coming next year, and this is not the first time in our lifetime that we've witnessed a TV deal change up the free agency market. Because everyone remembers the lovely year of 2016, when the new TV deal hit, and more important, firstly, that 2015-2016 is one of the best years in basketball, mind you. That was one of the best years in basketball in general. But it also gave us the opportunity to see some of the craziest contracts in NBA history.
Yeah.
Because people thought that this TV deal was going to grow exponentially. Obviously, it kind of leveled out eventually. So we got some horrible, horrible contracts coming out of this 2016 free agency class. And what we're going to do, Jay, is we're going to draft the lineup of the worst, not the best, the worst contracts on this list. Yeah. We usually get to pick the best players from like a draft class, from a certain team's history. No. We're looking at some of the worst contracts here, and we're going to try and build a team that will put you over the salary cap and will just make you cry just looking at them. Jay, how do you feel about this draft?
So I had a DMTV with this one, and I was like, okay, so when we look at this draft from looking at like when we're putting this draft together from 2015, 2016, are we going for vibes or are we trying to win the game? The minute he said vibes, I was like, say less. So this is going to be one of those drafts that, again, we're not necessarily playing for who's going to be the best on court. But if your team needs to go into debt, this is how you do it. TV, let's go ahead and start this thing.
You know what? At this point, Jay, we're not even gonna do like the whole like serpentine style. We're just gonna go 1-for-1 and try to do the draft that way. Jay, I'm still gonna give you the first overall pick though. Who is your number 1 pick in this draft?
TV, I gotta go with the staple guy, the screenshot everybody goes for when we talk about this year. We have to go with Mr. 4-year, $64 million man himself. The Lakers got Timofey Mozgov, and boy, oh boy. That poster child of one of the sickest off seasons of human history.
Bro, if you remember that time, Timofey Mozgov was the first tweet of that entire free agency.
Yep.
So the Lakers decided, we need to get this done at midnight. We need to make sure that we sign Mozgov to this contract. But yeah, that is the poster child for this. That is a great first pick. Jay, I'm going to stick with the Lakers, man. Because they had to use the stretch provision to get this deal done. Your boy.
Yes, sir.
Luol Deng. 4 years, $72 million. This man retired after like year or two of this contract, to the point where the Lakers had to use the stretch provision so they can pay him like $5 million a year after that.
Dude, if I'm not mistaken, I think Luol Deng just came off the Lakers' book like last season.
Last season.
That's crazy, bro. That's insane.
This man has been out the league for like 5 seasons, and they just finished paying his contract last year.
That's crazy, bro.
This man had the ultimate retirement plan, bro. This guy was, but yeah, Luol Deng was gonna be my first pick. If you went with Timofey Mozgov, we had to double down on the Lakers.
No, definitely. The next guy I'm actually gonna go with is Mr. Bag Chaser himself, Chandler Parsons.
Who gave this man a max deal,
dude. This dude found a way to swindle any team he could think of. See, in this year in particular, this was him taking off the Memphis Grizzlies. And this was coming off of where I think he was having one of his better seasons. I think this was right before he went to the Memphis. He was with the Rockets. That was the James Harden's Rockets team, I believe. And, hey, man, 4 years, damn near $95 million?
Nasty.
What? Dude. Oh my God. Wow.
That's a nasty deal.
Ooh, yeah. Chandler Parsons is a legendary bag chaser, man. That dude knew how to get himself some money.
100%. Yeah, that was definitely one of the top guys on the list. The fact that this guy got the max deal at the time was, again, teams were like, this salary cap is going to keep on growing. This deal's not going to look too bad. This deal looked bad. And it looked bad real quick. So, yeah, Chandler Parsons was definitely going to come off the board. My next guy on this list, there's so many bad center deals in this free agency class. And I got to go with one of the worst ones. Bismack Biyombo.
Yikes.
Bro, this contract was based off the second round that he had with the Toronto Raptors, where he was just an absolute defensive beast. And I knew he was going to be a free agent this summer. I was hoping the Raptors would bring him back. But when I saw that the Orlando Magic paid this man 4 years, $72 million, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to let him go. Get your bag, Bismack. You got someone who has no offensive game, who was averaging like 3 points a game this year, who didn't even start for the Toronto Raptors, and you gave him the bag. Already on a team where you had Vucevic, Aaron Gordon. You had Aaron Gordon playing the 3 at the time. You had like another center on the roster. The Magic were a mess back then. And the fact that they added on to it by giving Bismack Biyombo a 4 year, $72 million contract is abysmal.
Bismack Biyombo, man. We're talking about a name. Man, Jesus Christ. That is brutal stuff. That man, wow. Back when we were like really paying centers. That's insane to think about, right? Just a little less than a decade ago, centers were like really getting the bag. TV, I'm gonna give you another getting the bag one. Remember when the Hawks gave Dwight Howard $70 million? Because I do, and it lasted for all of what felt like 20 seconds. Did Dwight Howard get past one season with the Hawks?
I think it was just one season, and he ended up on the Hornets for like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
There you go.
That's the guy I'm gonna go with because
Tough
wow.
deal. Yeah, that was a tough deal. Yeah. Dwight Howard at that point in his career, yeah, that was a tough deal to swallow. My next guy I'm gonna go with, there's still quite a few guys on this list that you can kind of go towards, but I'm gonna go with someone who I don't even think like lasted like as long in the league with that contract. Like I think he retired before like this contract even finished.
Mm.
Ryan Anderson for 80 million for
Damn
4
it.
years.
That was the next guy I had too. That was the next guy. That was the next
Yeah.
guy.
Alan Anderson. Like I mean sorry, not Alan Anderson, Ryan Anderson. He had like a
Ryan
good
Anderson.
he had that good run with the Rockets for a little bit, but to say that you give like a bench player 20 million a year at that point in his career where he's like reaching the end, bro, like this is how crazy this was that we thought that people thought this was okay to give out to someone like Ryan Anderson.
Hey man, the stretch four ability was there though. Like when
It
he was
was.
on, he was like one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Dude was hitting like 39% from beyond the arc on like 5-6 attempts per game. Like when he was
Yeah.
like the skill set was there. But when you can't use the phrase turned into a pumpkin more lightly when you talk about the way this man fell from like grace. Like
Honestly.
wow, that dude fell, and I'm talking about fell off in the worst way. I remember that postseason with the Rockets. He couldn't seem like he couldn't hit the back of the backboard, let alone
Right.
like actually make shots. TV, I'm gonna raise you one though. I'm gonna give you the walking trade exception himself, Mr. Balloon Payment to get swindled and swung around of the league. Alan Crabb.
That name was that's an
Come
ugly
on,
cry.
man. From 2014 to 2017, there's no way he wasn't a Portland Trailblazer or a Brooklyn Net, man, because it was just bad money after bad money, dog.
Tough contract. Yeah, Alan Crab. Who looked at him averaging like 9 to 10 points a game and thought that this guy was worth like almost 20 million a year? Get out of here. Oh, that's a bad contract. That was a really bad contract. All right. Next player that I'm gonna end up drafting. Whew, there's still a few really bad ones out here. I'm gonna go with someone who cried at the fact that this team offered him this contract because he wasn't expecting to get this much. Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember the story? Like he got the phone call from the Brooklyn Nets, and when he said 4 years, 50 million, he broke down into tears.
They said he threw up.
He threw up. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the Heat matched it. Like what? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to think about it this way. The Nets lost out on Tyler Johnson and Alan Crabb because the respective teams, the Heat and the Blazers, matched. That's insane. Tyler Johnson is definitely the next part. Like, he couldn't even believe it. How are we supposed to believe that he was worth 50 million?
Dude, that's hilarious. But TV, my last pick, it's only right that I get this guy because we already have one former Chicago Bull on the list. My last pick is a tribute to the New York Knicks' innate ability to just throw bad money at bad centers anytime they get the chance to.
This guy had to be on the list.
And there's no way this guy wasn't going to make my starting five. They gave Joakim Noah $72 million over 4 years, and Joakim was looking cooked by the last year of his tenure with the Bulls. So Joakim Noah was basically already cooked, but guess what? The Timber Bulls were already in effect at the time, and they just had to get the kingdom come of them all by throwing that man Joakim Noah in the mix. He didn't play much for them. He was super injured. The best bench cheerleader in the league, it felt like, outside of Udonis Haslem. And like, man, look, just another encapsulated trade of like, wow, the Knicks just really know how to pay centers. Very big contracts, very bad money. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, jeez.
There's so many centers you could have chose on this list, man. But for my final pick, I'm gonna go with someone who, like, when was the last time I heard this man in the NBA? I'm gonna tell you right now, he played he spent one season of this contract here. I don't know how like they were able to move off of this, but the Bucks gave this man Miles Plumlee. Yes, you heard that right. Not Mason Plumlee. Miles Plumlee, 5 years, $52 million. And this guy was a career average 4 points a year. You didn't even get the better Plumlee, brother. Like, you traded him to the Hawks. This guy was never heard from again.
Bro.
Like, the one season, this is the season he had that warranted this contract. The season before this, he averaged 5 points a game and 4 rebounds. And you know what? And the Bucks said, you know what? Let's give this man like $14 million a year. Nice.
Legend.
Nice job.
Legend.
Absolute legend. I think that's the perfect encapsulation of all of this. If you average 5 points and 4 rebounds as a center, you're getting the bag this summer.
Bro, I'm thinking about it now. You were mentioning like the fact that like this year was like the year of just like centers getting crazy money. I just realized that like I have 3 on my team. Like, this is definitely not a starting 5 built for positional value because somebody has to play my 3, and I don't know which one of these centers it is.
Oh, bro, what a throwback, man! I'm gonna throw it over to you, Jay. Your team of horrible contracts from this 2016 offseason.
So for my 2016 recap of like easily not only just the worst contracts in the NBA at the time, but just like Mr. Break Your Salary Cap ass team that I got going on over here. My starting 5 is going to be Alan Crabb, Chandler Parsons, Dwight Howard, Timofey Mozgov, and Joakim Noah.
I mean, if you put the list in 2011, that's not the worst thing in the world. In 2013, that's not the worst thing in the world. 2016, and especially for that money they got, jeez, man. Ugh. What a team of that. I'm going to give my contract along with my players to kind of showcase how bad this is. Okay. At the 1, Tyler Johnson, 4 years, $50 million. The man who puked ever hearing that because he was not expecting that contract either. At the 2, Mr. Stretch Provision himself, Luol Deng. 4 years, $72 million. They just finished paying this man last year. That should tell you enough. At the 3, 4 years, $80 million, Ryan Anderson. This guy retired halfway through the contract. At the 4, Mr. 5 and 4 decided, you know what, this guy deserves $13 million a year, Miles Plumlee.
Yo.
And at the 5, one playoff series where he averaged 5 points and 9 rebounds. Bismack Biyombo gets 4 years, $72 million.
Yo, TV, bro, your team is so nasty, bro. Like, I know my team is bad, bro, but it's something about when you put the money next to it, bro, that just sounds crazy. Like, bro, what? I should have read my team like that. It would have made it sound so crazy, bro, because, like, what? Your team sounds nuts when you put that money next to it, bro. What the hell? No, Think about the players making $90+ million over the course of a 3 and 4 year like tenure with a team in 2024, bro.
Yeah.
You couldn't give like a dude, I just said it earlier. Kyle Anderson got $27 million over 3 years with Golden State. We talked about it earlier with Isaiah Hartenstein. We thought $87 million was too much for Isaiah. Well, not too much, but we thought that was a lot for Isaiah Hartenstein over 3 years. Joakim Noah in 2016 got 4 years, $72 million as a pumpkin, gang. That's great.
Yo.
Now I got to go back to some of my teams, like, because this is great. Alan Crabb, $75 million over 4 years. We just said Isaiah Hartenstein made 87 over 3. 87 in 2024 versus 75 in 2016. That Timofey Mozgov deal, that's it. TV, honorable mention time. You remember when the Charlotte Hornets gave Nicholas Batum $113 million? What? Bro.
Yo, Bro,
Like,
just
this
just
is
just 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 to
insane.
throw just to throw it out there, Mirza Teletovic got 30 million over 3 years.
Who?
Mirza
Who?
Teletovic,
Who?
Evan Turner 70 million, Evan Fournier 85 million, Jared Dudley got 10 million a year during this time. Some other guys, Ken Bazemore. We didn't even mention Ken Bazemore. 4 years, 70 million. Jeez, man.
TV John Lure got $40 million, bro. Like, what the
Let me go back to John Lure's averages. This joint pissed me off when I saw. I couldn't believe this. Where's John Lure's name? I just seen him a second ago too, but I saw him earlier when I was trying to put my starting five together, and I couldn't believe this. Where's John Lure's name? I can't wait to find this man because I gotta cook this man. John Lure's on the bro. What? Where's this man's name
As,
at?
as,
I'm gonna find.
as you're searching that up, also
What?
if you thought the Bronny James thing was bad, think about the nepotism when Doc Rivers decided to sign his son Austin Rivers for 3 years, 35 million.
No, like back when Doc
Yeah.
was playing GM. Good
Yeah.
God Almighty, brother. John Lure, 4 years, $42 million. TV. It says this is the breakdown from CBS. Shout out CBS Sports. It looks bad now because he only ended up playing 124 games in 4 seasons due to injuries, but Lure was productive in his first season. In his first season of the contract with 10.2 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 26 minutes per game. In fact, midway through that season, Lure contract actually ranked by the website as the 5th best deal. So he was the 5th best deal because at $42 million, which at the time I guess was what? That would have put him at like just a little bit over 10 million a year. It's not terrible, but when you look at the guys that get paid in 2024, some of the deals we've seen in 2024, to know John Lure might have had a more lucrative deal than like guys
Kelly
that we
Oubre.
see today,
It's
crazy.
It's insane. Yeah.
Crazy talk.
This draft was a good way of looking back at 2016 because at the time it seemed ridiculous, but we were like, let's be patient and maybe it wouldn't be as bad. It was as bad as
it was as bad as people thought it would be.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, yeah, crazy 2016. Is this gonna happen next year when the new TV deal happens? We'll have to wait and see. Probably, hopefully not, because these were bad. These were bad.
The new poster child will be Tobias Harris. Sorry, bro.
Well, if he somehow gets a 3-year deal after this, jeez, man. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think of our teams. Your memories from the 2016 free agency. Let us know down below from that as well. Jay, final segment of the show. It is time for the NBA quiz, and I made this quiz based on one of the free agents because Paul George is leaving the Clippers with a very disappointing legacy, but this is now his 4th team in his NBA career, and we've done this draft before, so we're gonna do it again. Jay, I'm gonna need you to name me the top 10 players with most games played that played with Paul George in his career. You've done this with LeBron, we've done this with Al Horford. So the most games played with Paul George of his teammates. I'm gonna need you to name the top 10.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. So we gotta really narrow this down a little bit. I think Russ has to be on here.
Clippers and Thunder. He's number, I think, 8 on the list. 237 games.
Let's go back a little. What about someone like the old Pacer guys? So Lance Stevenson.
Number 7 on this list. 260 games.
So that means this is pulling it back, but is Danny Granger on the list?
Danny Granger is actually the 3rd name off. You need 214. He played 171.
Okay, he was very injured. He was very injured around the time. That's
Yeah.
kind of what unlocked Paul George. So
yes,
you got to think about that a little bit. Excuse me. Old Pacers team. What about a David West?
David West, number 5 on this list with 273.
Okay, we have to think about what teams he's been on. Is Kawhi on the list? I doubt it, right?
First guy off. He is 4 games off from making this list.
Yeah, that's hilarious, by the way. 5 years, you guys are the super duper tandem, and you don't even play enough on the freaking court to last that is top 10 ever played over. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just wow, by the way. That's insane to think about.
Wow, though that's really tricky. What about like a George Hill, maybe?
Number 2 on the list, 335 games.
Oh, I kind of cooked just now. Wow. Okay, that was a pull. Um,
You're still
who
missing the
else
number
was-
1 guy on this list. Then you still have number 3, number 4, and I think a couple guys at the bottom. Yeah. And also number 6.
Roy Hibbert, maybe?
Number 1 on the list, 343 games he played with Mr. Verticality himself.
Nice. Oh man, wow. Talk about a crazy run. That Pacers team was different. Who else was on the Pacers team though? Like Solomon Hill? Nah.
I think he was too far like ahead of the Paul George thing. Like I think like he was like in the
Yeah.
later parts.
Yeah.
But think of some other Pacers. There's still a couple Pacers on this list.
Yeah, I feel like that era. I mean, he was there the longest, you know.
Yeah, he
So
was
like
there the longest.
obviously that matters.
There's one guy on this list I didn't think stayed for the Pacers that long, but he's like number 4. Like I was surprised to see him like this high up on the list.
Who? Man, I gotta really think about those Pacers teams because, like, I mean, when you really think about it, they really didn't like rotate often.
Yeah,
either,
no,
right? That team
they-
was like pretty consistent.
Yeah, no, like there's 2 more Pacers on this list, and they both played with Paul George for like 4 years.
Damn. What about like this is like an ugly name, but like what about like CJ Miles?
CJ Miles, I don't think like he's played 155 games with him, but again, that's like closest to the end of the Pacers tenure. There's some guys that were just there for like a while on the Pacers.
Okay.
Also, there's just to let you know, there's still a couple of Clippers on here.
Some Clippers made the list?
Yeah.
I guess he did play there for 5 freaking years.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, that makes sense. There's some Pacers guys I'm forgetting though. That's crazy. Let's just try like random one. Okay, is Terrence Mann on the list?
Terrence Mann, number 6 on the list, 268
Okay.
games.
Wild, but okay. So I guess that means Zubac has to be here.
Number 3 on the list, surprisingly,
Yeah.
287 games.
Very healthy though. Shout out
Very
Zubac.
I don't. He usually plays like what 78 to like 82 games per
Yeah.
year. So yeah.
Zubac solid.
Yeah.
Ooh, shout out to my UNC brethren. Is Tyler Hansbrough on the list?
Number 9 on the
Legend.
list. 237
Legend.
games.
Love that guy, man. Holy cow. Definitely more of a college player than an NBA player, but like, man, shout out to my UNC brethren. That's my guy right there.
You're only missing 2 people left on this list, and I think these are the 2 hardest names. You have one Pacer at number 4, and then you had someone that played with him on the Clippers and Thunder at number 10.
Damn it.
I will say the guy he played with on the Clippers and Thunder, maybe his best years weren't there. I would say like his best years were kind of with my Toronto Raptors.
Is this like a game within a game? You said the player has played on the Raptors, but he's also played on the Thunder and he's played on the Clippers?
Yes.
The player that we're referring to, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, wait a minute. TV just fused quizzes real quick. Hold on.
I mean, he's played with Kawhi. He's played with Paul George on the Clippers and the Thunder. But I think he's like most known for his time with the Raptors because I think that's the longest he's stayed with the team.
Oh, is this oh my God. Is this wow. I can see his face and his name isn't clicking for me though. Damn it. Is this Patrick Patterson? P-Pat?
P-Pat at number 10,
Legend.
214 games.
Legend.
Pat. Hey, look, man, I appreciate him on the Raptor teams. He was a solid role player for us. Stretch 4, bro. Stretch 4s. And you're now missing number 4. To be honest, like, one of the things I remember from this guy is, like, I think he also had a pretty bad contract at some point in his career, but he stuck around with the Pacers for a while. Yeah, he signed a contract with the Wizards back in the day for 4 years, $64 million.
Okay, so that's not Monte Ellis. Answered my question there, because as a big Monte Ellis stan, I was about to make that guess.
I was gonna say like that's like the biggest thing I remember from this guy's contract. The fact that he somehow finessed the team for 4 years, $64 million.
The Wizards. Wait a minute. That's a hint by itself. The Wizards. The Wizards. The Wizards. Who played for the Wizards that also played for Indiana that did cross paths with Paul George?
I don't know how this guy got this money, bro. I still it surprises me. Who paid this man this much?
Who played with the Wizards that also played with the Pacers that crossed paths with Paul George? Damn, that name for the Wizards, that Wizards part of it is very interesting.
I will say he was the backup big for the Pacers.
Oh, now I get the bad contract part. This was Jan Mahimi.
Mahimi.
I've been bitching about Jan Mahimi since like 2017, bro. Like that dude had one of the you gotta remember, I live right here in terms of being able to watch the Wizards play. Jan Mahimi was like one of the worst contracts in human history at one point. Like,
yes, it was.
Like, and the fact that he was on the Wizards was like crazy. Like I could not believe. Like wow.
Who gives Jan Mahimi not just that money, but a 4-year contract?
He even started for the Wizards at one point, which was like
he
kind
was
of
supposed to be the Gortat replacement.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay, PTSD. I'm out. Because you're absolutely right. That is how that happened. You're absolutely right. Wow. Yuck. That team had the nerve to make the playoffs too. Oh,
look,
that
man.
Wizards team made the playoffs. I think that was one of the teams that faced Boston.
Yeah. And it's just like,
my God.
Insane.
Yuck,
They get Jan Mahimi. It's $16 million a year for Jan Mahimi. Take that in. Just take that in. Jeez, man. But yeah, those are the top 10 guys to play with Paul George in his career in terms of games played. Some guys just missed the list. I said Kawhi Leonard, first guy off. We have Amir Coffey there at 185. Reggie Jackson with his time.
Made the list?
Number 12. He was there at number 12.
Wow. Shout out to Amir. I know my boy's rotational minutes for like the Clippers, but dang.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson was a part there.
Okay, that one I get.
Jeremy Grant, the 2 years he played with the Thunder, I mean, he just stayed healthy. I think that's a big thing. Even though he only played with the Thunder, he stayed like healthy. So he's on.
You forget how far back that was.
Yeah. No, he was a big part of that team. I think that's what got him like the big contract with like the Nuggets after that, right?
Yeah,
like the decent contract.
Wow,
yeah.
That's nuts to think about though. That like that they crossed paths, and then he still had the Nuggets tenure and the Detroit tenure.
And now he's on the Trailblazers. Yeah.
Like wow, you forget how far back that was. That's nuts.
Yeah. Those are guys on the list. Jay ended up completing the list. Let us know down below what you guys think of what other quizzes you want to see. And yeah, Paul George. 4th team in his career. He's played with a lot of guys, and he's played a lot of games.
Yeah,
respect, for sure.
Respect.
But yeah, this is the end of today's episode, Jay. We made it through for agency. Thank you guys for watching. What do you tell these people before we sign out?
Dude, I mean, don't get me wrong. Definitely not the most eventful free agency we've had in recent memory, but we all knew that. We knew the names weren't going to fly off the board. We knew that things were going to be a little bit different in terms of the caliber of guys that were on the market. But like, Klay Thompson is a Maverick. Paul George is back in the Eastern Conference. Donovan Mitchell re-signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers, which means that we could see real possible trades with Darius Garland and or Jared Allen. Like,
honestly,
the New York Knicks made the Villanova team that won the national championship by bringing Mikal Bridges onto the roster,
right?
And somehow still re-signed OG Anunoby. Like, for the longest time, we beat up on how boo-boo the East was. And in one summer, the East looks more exciting than we've seen it in quite some time. Now, the crazy part about this is I can already envision some of the dope playoff series we could potentially get next season. But this past season taught me one thing. Health is going to matter more than anything. Health and depth is going to matter more than anything. TV, we joked about it throughout the postseason. There were a lot of these postseason matchups where they just weren't as entertaining because at the end of the day, you knew one team was just at a disadvantage due to just being, just out players that really mattered.
There is a lot of talent across the league with a lot of the things we've seen over the last couple of weeks between trades, signings, things that are rumored to be put in place over the next couple of weeks, probably as well, with some of these teams still working to get better. The draft obviously was very enlightening, even though this was a quote unquote lighter draft. But I think that if these teams can stay even remotely healthy by postseason time, just from what we've seen so far this year, dog, like this year is gonna be super dope. Like this year is gonna be fire, bro.
I'm excited for these teams, especially the top of the East, man. The top of the East just got better. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen this next year. And the moves aren't done. You're gonna follow along with this Hit Your Free Throws podcast for all season long content. And like I mentioned before, the WNBA content is coming. We got the Olympics coming up later on this month, so we're going to be covering some of that as well. So it's going to be a crazy offseason. Be on the lookout for that. Again, make sure to check out our stuff on the daily pages, on the TikToks and Instagrams. You have the YouTube to look at. You have the podcast networks to look at. You can find us everywhere, basically. And you're going to be following along with us throughout this entire offseason, going into next NBA season. You know there's going to be a lot of content coming out. So yeah, it's going to be an awesome offseason. We're going to be back next week talking about winners and losers. And there's a chance for another bonus episode next week, so be on the lookout for that as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you guys for all your support. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.